How you doing, babes? You okay? How's everybody? Welcome back to my channel. I am Sam, a wedding photographer here in the UK, just a little island just above France. And I'm in my studio doing a little episode for YouTube, so it's a little bit different. I've been asked a few questions on Instagram lately, and I just thought, you know what, let's just put it out there and let's just turn this into a YouTube episode. Let people ask anything they want to ask around wedding photography, business, whatever it might be, and we'll just work through them and I'll just share my thoughts and ramblings on that question. So here we are. I've got myself a coffee. I've got a list of questions on my phone from the people of Instagram. And if you like what we're doing here, you know what to do, right? You can hit the like button, subscribe, you can follow, you can share, you can put a comment in the box below. And if there's a question that you've got that you're like, oh damn it, I should have asked that question, just drop it in the comments below and we'll do another one of these. We'll just do another episode. So any questions, drop it below and we'll have a look again in a month's time. Got the questions on my phone. I'm just going to read the question out and then we'll just see where it goes. So, question number 1 from Laura Mack Photography on Instagram. Does having a niche limit your bookings and reach, or does it boost it? It's hard to make the jump. Okay. So, does having a niche limit your bookings and reach? So, my first response to this is I think it really depends on where you are at in your business journey, like how far along you are. I think if you're in the opening year or two of your business, you have to be relatively broad, because really what you're looking to gain is experience, and you just need to be out there shooting. So it kind of comes back to that cliched kind of analogy of, you know, if you try and appeal to everybody, you appeal to no one, which is great if you know who you're trying to appeal to. But I think in the early stages, you don't really know necessarily who your target audience is. That comes with a little bit of time and experience. So for me, finding your niche, and by that I mean finding your style or your type of genre, is great if you are really clear on that. But I think in the early years, it is just about experience. It's about developing your style, just playing around with things and experimenting, because here's the thing, right? Like, you don't know necessarily what your niche is going to be until you've been out and tried a lot of them. So I think you do have to be quite broad to start with, but naturally over time, you will start to recognize there are certain genres or niches or styles of photography that really, really connect with you as an artist and as a creative. And when you start to feel that, when you start to recognize it, when you get excited about going to that type of shoot or that type of wedding, or, you know, that kind of field of photography, whatever it might be, because obviously within photography niches, there are also niches. So within wedding photography isn't just a niche. Wedding photography is an incredibly broad industry. And within that, there are so many sub-niches. Is that a thing? I don't know. But you have to experience them first to decide whether it's for you or not. And then once you do start to find that, and you'll know when the time's right, because you'll be really leaning into that kind of work. But what happens when you lean into that, and what happens when you show that and turn up and produce that kind of work time and time again, is that it attracts the people that want that. So then it just becomes self-funding, in a sense of the people that book you are booking you because they've found the kind of work that you're showing, and then those people are wanting those images, so they're then creating another version or variation of those images that then inspires a new market or another audience that want that kind of genre or niche. So I think it's something, to go back to the start of the question, I think it's something that just happens naturally over time. And some photographers get there quicker than others. It might take you 3, 4, 5 years. It might take you 6 months. I think the biggest thing, or the biggest takeaway for me that I could give you, is to just have that awareness of it, and to just be thinking about it when you're going to those shoots and when you're editing your work, when you're delivering it, which niche, what type of photography is really speaking to you, and what is it that you're really connecting with. And then over time, you just try and ramp that up and you start creating more of that kind of work. Yeah, that's kind of it, I think. Is that all right? Yeah, I think I kind of answered that one. Okay, thank you very much, Laura. Okay, Forged in Love Photography, Andy. How did you feel, or what did you do to combat the times when you weren't getting the inquiries? Okay, it's quite an easy one actually. This is for me. I just work harder. I just start putting out more content and doing all of the things that I know are beneficial to my business. And it probably starts really with creating blog posts. But not just creating a blog post, it's creating the blog post and then sharing it. Then it's slicing it up and using it on different platforms. So I'd probably be looking at, pushing it out to obviously Instagram and creating an Instagram carousel post. Then it's, I need to get that on stories. Then I need to maybe submit it to a blog. I think one field that we are, if you follow Another Idea, our podcast, you will have heard this when this episode goes out, but the power of Pinterest is still, for me, very untapped by a lot of photographers. I think we're all in the kind of the rat race for Instagram. But Instagram isn't evergreen or searchable, and Pinterest is, as is Google. So again, creating that content, you don't necessarily get the instant quick fix or quick hit that you get with Instagram, but you get that longevity. So yeah, I'd be doing a blog post, I'd be getting it on Instagram, I'd be posting it to Facebook, I'd be getting it out on Pinterest, I'd be tagging them, I'd be getting it out to blog posts, and I'd be doing it for the next wedding and the next wedding and the next wedding, and I'd be going back through the archives and pulling out any of the weddings that I've not featured, and I'd be just showing up consistently until those bookings start coming through. I'd be working on all the things in the background that are going to bring me that bit of traffic. I'd be updating my Google for Business page, I'd be checking my website and updating my portfolio on my website, and then showing up more on Instagram. I'd be doing stories, I'd be trying to do some reels, I'd be just doing all of those marketing tasks and activities that are very easy to neglect because they take a bit of time and effort, but they're the jobs and the tasks that are ultimately going to create a bigger net for you to cast out into the sea of inquiries. And that's really the name of the game, isn't it? Is to generate those inquiries, and you only do that by increasing your marketing activity. That is it. It's as simple as that for me. I don't really believe or think there is any kind of quick fix or any go-to method that guarantees any kind of inquiry or booking increase. It takes like a really considered and consistent approach to marketing. And look, there are definitely times when I've taken my foot off the gas, like without a shadow of a doubt. There are other things happening in my business now that mean I don't get the time to necessarily lean into those marketing activities that I would have done 4 or 5 years ago. But that comes down to me not wanting to necessarily be 100% as a wedding photographer all the time. I'm trying to grow other parts of my business. But if you are solely a wedding photographer and it seems a little bit quiet, but you're not doing those marketing tasks or activities, then that is why. It's not rocket science. Just keep yourself busy, show up, turn up, shout about yourself. Do all of those simple tasks. And again, as I said at the start of this question, it starts with creating content. It starts with creating a blog post around your work, or it's about how can you educate or inform or help your target market. You look at Instagram Reels these days and YouTube Shorts and TikToks. The people that are doing it well as wedding photographers are creating content that they're talking to camera, and they're trying to bring value and insight to their audience around the world of wedding photography and weddings. Now, you don't have to go and do that if you don't want to. If you feel really uncomfortable doing reels or talking to camera, then that's fine. No one's forcing you to. But if you want the work, if you want the inquiries, that is an area of marketing that you would be foolish to neglect, in my opinion. So yeah, great question, Andy. Thank you very much for that. Mark James Photo says, really fancy more video as well as photo. Do I get an R5 or could I get away with 2 R6s? Okay, so I don't have an R5, so I don't really feel like I can really comment on that too much. And I'm also not hugely techie or geeky when it comes to kit. Don't get me wrong, I understand how it works and it obviously is important, but I don't overthink it. You know, I will always just shoot or film with whatever I have available to me. I'm not somebody that's going to go and I need to go and buy that kit because that's going to, you know, it's going to make me do the job. Like, I can do the job with what I have. What I would say is, unless you absolutely need the R5, just save your money. Like, the R6s for video that we're filming on here are incredible. Don't not having the R5s be an excuse for not doing video. And actually, I think this kind of ties into the last point as well, actually, in that I think a big thing that's going to change this year is the amount of, I think we're going to see a lot more photographers creating video content from the wedding. It might not be a huge amount, it might just be trailers or little snippets, but I think if you can really start to lean into creating a little bit of video and producing some short reels that are, you know, high production value, because you've now got the ability with the R6s or, you know, the other cameras that are out there on the market to be able to produce that content quickly and easily, then as Andy asked in the previous question, I think that's going to be really powerful for businesses in this industry to be able to create that video content alongside the images that you're going to deliver and show up with on Instagram. If you can kind of follow that up with like here's a 20-second, you know, video of outtakes from that wedding day, that's going to be hugely, hugely powerful going forward. And the people that are going to do well at that are going to be the ones that are going to be, for me, clearing up from a marketing point of view. So yeah, R5 if you absolutely need it, but they're not cheap. I wouldn't be buying the R5 just on a whim and because you think it's going to help you with video wise. If you have an R6 or, you know, you're just looking to, you know, add video to your work, then the R6 is more than capable of doing that. Okay, Christina HB, what's the best way to get more inquiries for wedding photography? Oh, it's basically the same question as Andy, really. Didn't notice that. But again, like I've already talked about with the last two questions, there's no magic recipe, there's no secret ingredient. It is about being active consistently over a period of time, and doing all of those tasks and activities that are going to show people that you care and that you are passionate about what you do as a wedding photographer, and that you're going to show your brand, your visual aesthetic, but also your personality. If you can get those across over time, people will find you and they will turn up. MN Wedding Photographer, is Mike. What is the best, favourite, most useful piece of gear you have or have had for wedding photography? That's a really tough one. Do you know what? That's a really tough one because, and this is a bit of a curveball answer, I don't really have a favourite piece. And I'm actually somebody that definitely over the last 4 or 5 years has realised that actually having minimal stripped down kit is so much more beneficial for me as a photographer. So can I say 2 cameras and 2 lenses? And that's it. There isn't really a useful piece of kit or gear that I use. I think the industry often lets us believe or think that we need this little piece of kit. Kind of, I suppose, like Mark asked about the R5s. You know, it's a very clever industry. Like the world of these huge corporations selling us photography gear and Amazon trying to sell us products 24/7. You know, they know what they're doing. They know how to make us feel like we need this piece of kit, and you know, more often than not, you don't need it. Actually, Courtney, who stood just off camera, was about to buy an ND filter earlier, and I was like, "Why are you buying that?" What? And she was like, "I need it for photography." I was like, "No, you don't. You don't need it for photography." And it's funny because actually, like, she'd probably seen something that, maybe somebody had posted on Instagram, might be a sponsored post, you don't know, but it led her to think that she needed an ND filter. And then we talked about it, and she was, "Oh, I don't think I do. You need an ND filter?" No, she doesn't need an ND filter. So I've saved her, 20, 30 quid? Yeah, nearly 50 quid. I've saved her nearly 50 quid. Yeah, for me, I think the key is really just keeping your kit to almost the bare minimum. Like, really strip it down and keep it simple. Don't get me wrong. I think kit is important and gear is important. Like, knowing that you've got gear and you've got the cameras and the lenses that you can trust in, and that you know are going to create the kind of the visual identity that you want to be able to create, is really powerful, and it's super important. But it shouldn't determine. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't think there's anything out there that's going to make or break you as a photographer, or there's nothing out there for me that, or there's certainly nothing that I carry in my bag that I'm like, yeah, this is top secret. I'm glad no one knows I've got this, because there isn't. It is 2 Canon R6s. It's a 35. It's an 85. There's a flash gun. There's an LED panel. There's spare batteries, and there's a 15 to 35 for the dance floor. That is it. Okay, Brittany Painter Photography. How do you handle people trying to direct what you take photos of? Suppliers, guests, etc. Okay, I'll be honest, that doesn't really happen a huge amount for me. Oh, I've got cramp in my foot. Hold on. That's a good outtake for you. Need to stretch that one out. So let's just break this down. Suppliers don't really ask me for photos. I don't often on the wedding day sort of come across suppliers. They might go, "Oh, look, could you get some photos and share them with us?" And I'll just go, "Yeah, of course I will." But I do that anyway. They wouldn't have to ask me. I'm going to take photos that are going to be in the interest of all the suppliers that are involved at that wedding. Simple as that. Because it's in my interest to do that, because they're ultimately going to use those images. They're going to share them on Instagram. They're going to pin them, and they're going to credit me. Hopefully, they're going to credit me. I do ask that they credit me. In terms of guests, I suppose there's 2 forms of guest here that are asking photos. If a guest said to me, "Hey, can you just take a photo of us?" Like, I'm always going to take that photo, and I'm going to try and take the best bloody photo that I can take in that 10 seconds that I'm going to take that photo, because I want them to have a photo that is going to be way better than anybody else that stood next to me with an iPhone taking a photo. So I want them to get a lovely photo. If I get a guest that's, I suppose this is probably where your question's coming from, which is kind of controlling the scene or a shoot. I'm trying to think if this has ever happened, though. I don't know if this has ever happened, but I suppose I'm just trying to run through the scenario in my head, and I would probably just go, I'd probably entertain it for like 10, 15 seconds, and then I'd just find a way of just sneaking out the back. I'm just going to go and get a photo of that, and I'd just walk off and go and take photos of somebody else doing something. I'd look for a way out. Yeah, does that happen to people? I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but hopefully it did. Where are we next? Shelby Ellis Photography. Who would your dream person be to interview on the podcast? Oh, these questions are... I always find these questions like dream people or, celebrity. I find them really hard to pick and answer, because I often get asked that and then my mind just goes completely blank and I forget everybody that exists in the world. So I'm just going to go with the first person that springs to mind that inspires me at the moment, and that is a female artist called CJ Hendry. So if you don't know CJ Hendry or you don't follow her, obviously I'd encourage you to go and do that. Her work has really stood out to me in the last year or two. She is a pencil artist. She draws real life, like real pictures of products. So for example, she drew a huge picture of a pair of Nike Air Jordans, I think. But it looks real. It looks like she's just done a print of a pair of Jordans. Picture of Mickey Mouse vacuum packed in a clear plastic bag, like hand drawn by pencil. So it looks unbelievably real. And that isn't just what I admire about her, actually. What I really admire about her is her marketing activity. and how she's grown and the ways she goes about. She could just show her photos and her images and just be like, there you go, that's me. But she's really embraced the form of video in her marketing activity. And I'd encourage you just to go and look at it and just look at what they do, and how they generate that awareness and that excitement around her drawings and her product. And I'd just love to be able to have a conversation with her around where that process starts for her, where she takes her inspiration from, and how they go about filtering those ideas. Yeah, just beautiful work, absolutely breathtaking pieces of art, combined with a really powerful, creative, thoughtful approach to marketing activity. Really inspiring. And hey, you never know. Maybe the podcast one day will have CJ Hendry featured on it. That'd be great. I'd love that. Okay, next question. Dan Extents. How long do you roughly spend on post-production for each wedding? For me, I suppose I have kind of like a general rule of thumb, which is for every hour of me shooting a wedding, I genuinely believe that there's about an hour's worth of post-production. So if I'm doing a 10-12 hour wedding, I've generally got 10-12 hours of editing to do. That generally includes the cull. So the cull will take me 2 to 3 hours maybe. And then the edit will be sort of 7 to 8 hours. Over the past 6 to 12 months, I have started using Imagine, and I found it incredibly powerful, actually. It's something I'm going to do a video on again in the near future. But the one thing I would say about Imagine is that it doesn't do my editing 100%. It gives me, I suppose it's the same thing as, like, you know, before Lightroom was really like the go-to editing piece of software. You would bring your images into Lightroom, then you'd maybe go and add a preset onto each image, and then you go and edit each image. Now you import them and it applies the preset. The next step on from that is that you import them with the preset, and then you run them through Imagine, and then you get to that end result far quicker than you would do if you went and started editing it from scratch. And that's kind of how I see Imagine in my workflow, which is it gets me 95% of the way there. I still go through every image. I still make small adjustments post it being through Imagine. I would never just push it through that system and then just deliver the gallery. I still go through every single image because there are always things that I'm looking for that AI just will not be able to notice. But it's incredibly powerful. And it's probably saved, you know, it may well have saved 50-60% of my editing time. I think pre-AI, I would probably spend 8 to 9 hours on a gallery, whereas now it tends to be more like 4, maybe 5 hours on a gallery. So yeah, that's how much time gets spent on post-production. But then obviously there's also things like, you know, uploading to the gallery, then building the pick time slideshow. You know, there's always those extra things, aren't there? So I'd say there's a good day and a bit's worth of work post-wedding. Okay, next question. Copper and Olive Photo. How do you build the confidence to get creative on a shoot? I often freeze up. Okay, that's a great question. I can remember feeling like that for the first few years of being a wedding photographer. I suppose the first thing that I could say to you is that it does come with time. You know, that's a byproduct of, you know, confidence is a byproduct of experience, isn't it? It's working through that process. And I think if you really think about it in that sense of, okay, it's going to come with time, my suggestion to you would be get out there and just shoot harder and shoot more. And that doesn't mean you have to wait for clients to come to you. Get out there and just go and shoot more. You know, offer free shoots. If you find being creative on portrait shoots kind of intimidating, or you're worried, or you don't feel like they're going the way that you want them to go, just put it out there that you're going to do some free shoots. Like, just do it. Just go and say, right, on this day, I'm going to just be there for 3 hours and I want 2 couples. Who wants a free shoot? And just go and say to them, look, I'm not going to charge you a penny for it, not a dime. I just want to take some photos. And then all that does then, it just removes that pressure is just taken from you straight away. And you have an opportunity then to experiment and play. And it's through that process that you then figure things out. You will then be able to start to recognize what it is you need to look for in that moment and in that scene. And I also think a really big part of this is actually, you know, we've already talked about imagine and outsourcing, your editing, and you can now outsource culling. I would encourage you not to do that for a little while. I think it's really beneficial as a wedding photographer and somebody that's in the industry, actually just as any creative or any photographer especially, to learn and understand the craft. And you do that by self-critiquing yourself is a huge skill for me. Being able to go through a wedding, and I still do it now, I still cull my wedding images because I understand just how important that process is for me to develop myself as a creative. Because you learn so much in that process. Although the opportunities are there for you to outsource and to speed up that process, I'd encourage you to try and avoid that if you can, or if you're in the place of still trying to learn and figure things out. But yeah, I think it's so important to just really put yourself out there more often. Go and do more free shoots and just keep going until you get to a stage where you're like, oh no, this is starting to click now. And it will click. There will come a time when you go, yeah, no, do you know what? I know what I'm doing here. No, I'm all right. Like, I know what to look for. A little tip I could give you is just to make sure that I often think as beginner photographers or new photographers, we often get a bit overwhelmed in the sort of setup stage of framing a shot. And one big tip I could give you is to just take 5 to 10 seconds out before you start shooting a couple or a scene to just mentally register what the settings are on your camera. And that might sound really basic and simple, but just take a moment to just go, right, yeah, this is where my settings are at. No, this is good. This is what I need. And then you can just forget about your settings. And once you've forgotten about your settings, you can then just be present on working that space and working that scene. And don't be afraid to take bad shots. Like, I still take loads of bad photos. I take bad photos all the time. I think the difference or the key is to be able to understand that in the moment and to know when to move on quickly from that bad shot. And that just comes with time and experience, but you will get there. Hopefully that helps a little bit. Jody Hurd Photography. Backing up systems, please. What products do you use? Right, so again, this has changed a lot in the last sort of 4 or 5 years because hard drives now, they're going up to you can buy 10 terabyte hard drives quite comfortably. I have a Drobo system, so I have a bay storage system. I don't think you can buy Drobo anymore, but there are other brands out there that will offer a similar thing. If I was starting out now, and I was starting again, I would just buy 2 10 terabyte hard drives. I'd have one of them as my sort of main sort of hard drive that I would dump all of my images onto and I'd work from. And then the other one would act as a mirror and I'd back everything up to that hard drive. And you can use a piece of software called ChronoSync to automate that backup process. I still use a Lightroom catalog stored within Dropbox with smart previews. So that acts as my kind of like online backup. And I also still use just a Lassie external portable drive, almost like a little SSD, and I just dump all of my working images, so all of the images and the raw files that I am currently working on or have not yet been delivered stay on that hard drive, and they go back home with me. So they're sort of 10 minutes up the road. So for me, it's having an on-site backup, some kind of cloud software or backup either through Lightroom Smart Preview files or Backblaze or some other kind of online system, and then I'd also still have an off-site copy. So yeah, they're the go-tos for me, the essentials. KatieMills.photography on Instagram. How did you book your first wedding? Through an ex-girlfriend, actually. Yeah. So an ex-girlfriend of mine, her cousin was getting married, and she knew that I was starting to kind of dip my toes into the world of photography, and she very kindly just recommended me. And I don't even know what they saw in me to do their wedding, but she just phoned me up and said, "Would you like to come and shoot it? Could you do that? Could you quote us for it?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll give it a go. It's fine." And I did. I look back on it now, and actually, I'm like so. I was going to say fortunate, but I was prepared. But it was a tough gig. It was a November wedding. It was a 4:00 ceremony. So before the ceremony had even started, it was dark. It was candle lit. Like, look back on it now with the 5D Mark IIs. and actually I did quite well just to get some photos. I used to have like another business that had studio lights, so I took studio lights and set those up in like a little corner of the room that they were in, and did some formal photos with that, which I would never do now, but that was all I knew at the time. But there was something that I came away from that wedding, even though it was challenging and technically as difficult as probably any first wedding job that anybody could have. I can still remember going to it actually and thinking, I don't feel very well. I feel a bit sick. I can remember ringing a guy that I was talking to at the time that was into photography, a guy called Sean Taylor, if he's watching this. And I tried to phone him at lunchtime to say, mate, can you come and help me, because I don't feel very well. And he didn't answer his phone, so I just went to it and I just got on with it. But once I got there and I got underway, I just forgot any of those worries or fears I had, just disappeared, and I just did what I would do, which is just talk to people, get involved and engage with them, and that was it. There's not really been any looking back since then, and it was a great experience, and I feel incredibly thankful to Cassie and Chris for putting some ridiculous blind faith in me to be able to do a job. But they did. They saw something and trusted me, and that was it. Away we went. And I think it was £400. I think that's what I charged them. Pat Partridge Photography. What is the best and worst thing about the wedding industry in 2023? Ooh, it's a tough one. What is the best? What did I say to you, Courtney? That was the best. What was the best thing about it? I know what it is. I know. I think it's just the level of talent, isn't it, in the industry? I think that's what I said to you. I find it at the moment just unbelievably inspiring, like the amount of talent and creativity that is within this industry. Actually, it still drives me mad that the wedding industry comes in for a bit of a bad rap sometimes, and that we all still kind of reluctantly say, oh yeah, I'm a wedding photographer. When actually we should be going, yeah, I'm a wedding photographer. It's great. I love it. The level of work that is being produced now at what is a relatively entry-level point is quite astonishing, I think. That bar of work that previously used to be produced by maybe only a handful of photographers that were at the very top of their game is now really being produced and created by 70-80% of the market, I think. I don't know why that is. I think kit has definitely made it easier and more accessible to produce really strong images. But, as I've said before, a camera doesn't make the photographer. I just think people are more inspired by the industry. They're looking at what people are doing in the industry and they're pushing themselves harder to be able to create that kind of work. If I look at, my other business and like the education side of my business, that education and support for photographers in the industry is as accessible now as it's ever been. There are no kind of secrets or secret clubs where people keep things to themselves. Everybody's very open and very honest and very willing to share their knowledge and their support for people in the industry. And I think that's ultimately showing in the work that's being produced. What's the worst thing about the wedding industry in 2023? For me, personally, I think I'd have to say the pressure of having to keep showing up. Like, it's a blessing and a curse, isn't it? Like the world that we live in. It's great that we are able to showcase our work to an audience, and people all over the UK, over Europe, in America can see one image that you've created and produced for a couple and be like, that's what we want. That's the person that we want to come and bring to our wedding, wherever it might be, anywhere in the world. Like, that's incredible. But the downside is that we all know, in order for that to work, we have to be consistently showing up. And it's one thing I talk about, the power of consistency. And I'm guilty of it all the time, of not being as consistent or as, active on social media as I probably should be. But it's hard. Like Instagram now is full of creators. It's packed. You can't move for people really pushing their creativity and their content on that platform. To stand out on that platform is now incredibly hard because it's a busy place, and everybody's a creator. So I think for me that's probably the worst thing about the industry. Definitely the hardest thing, which is just to keep showing up and to keep being active. But I do also think that also starts with having the work. I think if you've got the work and you're out there and you can be busy, actually just by showcasing that work and just going, no, I'm not going to put any pressure on myself to show up. I'm just going to use it as a platform to showcase my work and what I'm about, and to put my brand out there. It's still incredibly powerful. I just think we all need that little bit of an off switch from time to time, don't we? Yeah, I don't think that's going to be going away anytime soon. I think that's going to be an ongoing issue for generations to come, and it has probably been an ongoing issue for the last 20 years. Okay, same person, Pat Partridge Photography. If you could photograph any celebrity, dead or alive, who would it be? Again, it's that celebrity question, isn't it? Who would I go for if I could photograph anybody? Who's an inspiration? I'd go with Tiger Woods. Yeah, no real reason. Just he was probably the first person I can remember growing up as a young teenager that just absolutely astonished me. And only did everybody, didn't he? I just found him to be remarkable, and in a sport and an industry that had seen anything quite like him before. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that would idolise Tiger Woods for everything that he's done for golf and the world of sport. So yeah, Tiger Woods. Okay. Waves of Wonder Photography. Abby, the biggest hurdles in the 2023 landscape. Okay, so I think I've answered a bit of this already, but I'm going to address it again. And I don't necessarily see it as a hurdle. I see it as an opportunity. I think the people in this industry that are going to separate themselves from the rest of the market and stand out are going to be those people that can do a couple of things. And the first one is to really embrace video. Like the people that can embrace video and video form, creating video, no matter what industry you're in, and whether that's with your phone or shot on a Canon R6 or a Sony, whatever it might be, being able to create that content to varying degrees of quality. If you can do that and you can do it consistently, like, you're going to stand out from everybody else. Simple as that. And I also still think that people that can show up, that can talk to camera, that can put out a positive attitude and that can bring value to their audience and their market, they will be the ones that will stand out and thrive. So I suppose, to come back to your question, in terms of the biggest hurdle is can you step up and create video content regularly and consistently and of good value and to a high production. That's the hurdle. Okay, final question. Boda Photography Co. UK. How to get over lens choice procrastination on a wedding day. Okay, so a couple of things to that one. First and foremost, and this comes back to one of the earlier questions that I answered, keeping your kit simple. Like, I've gone to weddings before with a 24mm, a 35mm, a 50, an 85, a 135, and a 45mm tilt shift. So that's 6 lenses that I've been to a wedding with before, and I did that for probably 2 or 3 years. I'll tell you now, you don't need that many lenses in your bag. You need 2, maybe 3. 2's like a minimum though. And actually, if you just keep it to 2 and you go, well, this is what I'm working with, then really you shouldn't be procrastinating anything. You look at lenses now like the 2470 f2, is it, on the Canon, the RF. I mean, there are people that I know, or 2870 it might be, people that are using that absolutely rave about it. It's like, do you ever need a prime lens again? Maybe not. But for me, 35, 85, and then you just use this thing called, to focus, you just use this thing called your feet focus. To zoom, you just move around. And I don't overthink it either on the day. If I've got a 35 in my hand, then that's what I'm using, and I'm going to be close, and I'm going to be uptight. If I'm using an 85 and that's on the camera, I'm just going to walk around the 85. I think the more time you spend procrastinating or questioning your lens choice, or you're changing lenses on a wedding day, all you are doing is you're taking your time and your focus and your attention away from the real job at hand, which is observing and people watching. And the more you can do that, the more shots you're going to come back with. It's as simple as that for me. So keep it simple, move around more, don't overthink it and don't question it. Just shoot with whatever you've got in your hand at the time, and just react. So yeah, there we have it. Our first ever YouTube Q&A, Courtney. We've done it. So let us know what you think. Have you enjoyed it? Has it made you think of any questions that you wanted to ask? If so, drop it in the comments below. DM us on Instagram at samdocker.education or at samdocker.co. We'll put those below as well. And let us know what you think, and we'll do another one if it goes down all right. Time will tell, won't it? We'll see what happens. Right. Oh, my coffee's gone cold. Oh, shit. Oh, cold coffee. Right. If you like it, thumbs up, give us a follow, subscribe, do all that stuff. See you next time.